Good morning, sports fans, and welcome to our second episode of the Preston and Mike Show. We have a very, very, very special guest here who is quite close and dear to our hearts, Andrew, the man, Drew Mahasic. Let's introduce him real quick.
Hey, I'm Andrew. Most of you guys know me. I'm just happy to be here. Planning on attending Miami University, class 2023. So big shout out.
Yep, go Redhawks. And let's kick it over to Preston to start this episode off.
Hey guys, we have 3 segments for you today. First, we are going to go over our bowl picks recap and then hit up the controversy of paying the players in college football, especially with the 2019-2018 signing class coming in. Well,
2019-2018?
Well, it's
Preston starting this one out strong yet again.
Well, it's the 2019 class. They just signed in 2018, so that's why.
Why'd you say it like that, though? There's no reason for you to say it.
Because I was thinking they're incoming 2019. Anyway,
it was unintelligent. Can we establish that it was unintelligent?
Let's keep going.
Charge on.
Anyway, segment number 3 today is going to be I can't remember. What is it?
Literally look at the board right there.
I'm facing the other side of the board. It's the 18 playoff. Another big controversy in college football right now. But first, we got the Capital One Bowl Mania. Capital One, if you want to sponsor us, please do. We need some sponsors.
Also, Sprite Cranberry. I'm drinking a delicious Sprite Cranberry right now, and I love it.
Also, Outback. We want a bloomin' onion. So
free bloomin' onion, and we'll talk about your company.
Anyway, so Jacob Sowers, our producer, just happens to be in the lead of these bowl picks with 96% of his picks correct. Then tied for second is Preston, John Paul, and Finesse Lord Mike, as his name is on ESPN.
What can I say? I'm pretty good at this.
Okay, he's terrible at this. I misclicked San Diego State over Ohio, and I will not let anyone forget that. I should be tied with Jay. As shameful as those words coming out of it makes me feel an immense amount of shame to be tied with Jay in the bowl picks right now.
The fact of the matter is, Jay's going to slide back down when he picks Boston College to beat Boise State.
It's going to be incredibly embarrassing.
It's going to be okay.
I'm not sure even he picked that because he just picked straight with the favorites. I watched him pick it. It was whoever everyone picked, he also picked. So
fair enough. Okay, let's get into our first segment of the day, or second, I guess now, which is the paying the players in college football. It's been a controversy for a few years now, and it's especially popular among paying recruits. So I'm going to kick this one over to JP to start it off.
Oh boy. Wow, I wasn't expecting that. Definitely, though, if I had to take a finite binary stance here, it would be that the players should be paid. Just pulling up the numbers here, the NCAA Division I netted $9.15 billion last year, and the players see none of that money.
Yeah, the CEO of the NCAA makes over $1 billion a year.
We're calling you out, Mr. CEO.
Is it Mark Emmert or Mike Emmert? Something like that.
I have no idea.
Yeah, something.
Michael, what's your opinion?
I disagree with both of you, actually. I don't know how much the NCAA makes is relevant. It comes down to specific teams. And a team like Alabama, who draws in incredible amounts of money. Nick Saban is the highest paid public worker in the state of Alabama. So a team like Alabama can pay their players exorbitant rates. But a team like App State, who we've seen come into its own because of great recruiting from Coach Satterfield there, or Saturniak, I'm really mixed up here. It's Saturniak or Satterfield. It is one of the two.
It's not just me tonight.
Super embarrassing.
It's usually just you. Either way, teams with great recruiting coaches who can't pay as well as other teams couldn't get great recruiting classes. It wouldn't work for them. There would be no competition outside of high-tier SEC, Big Ten, and Pac-12, Big 12 schools.
Well, I feel like you could really work around that if you just literally have a salary cap. I mean, each school can pay up to $100,000, let's say, and that way the athletes are getting a share, and the ones that are sacrificing getting a good degree to play football will actually be able to get their fair share, or not even their fair share, but something, while you won't have that ridiculous disadvantage.
Let's be honest, though. They're already getting paid. And
calm down, Ole Miss.
I know. I think we know this, though. Look at a team like Michigan, who I know you don't like, JP, but Michigan took their entire team on a trip to Rome, and I doubt the players on Michigan paid for everything to get there and everything once they were there.
Yeah, but
And-
the thing is with this is you could pay them. Right. I am not morally objected to paying them in any way, but the problem is when you pay men's football players, you have to pay women's volleyball players the same exact amount because of Title IX. And that doesn't make sense because that program doesn't bring in as much money. Swimmers, golfers, I don't know, pick a sport, guys. Any sport. You got to pay them the same amount as a football player.
Underwater basket weaving.
Underwater basket, their NCAA Division I underwater basket weaving teams will receive the same amount of money as a college football team. And that'll just bring money or take money away from college football programs and give it to programs that are less deserving of money.
You know, I just want the players to be paid so we can have another NCAA football game. I want that back.
Oh, NCAA
The-
football 14.
Player likeness, you know.
Absolutely. I mourn the loss of the NCAA football Xbox games every day. I still play NCAA football 14 almost daily.
I do as well.
Almost daily. I'm great at it.
Pour one out.
Rip.
R.I.P.
I think it's also a shame that it's not
Preston, we're
compatible
taking
with
a
the
moment
new
of
Xbox.
silence right now.
Oh,
If you
sorry.
could, a moment of silence for NCAA football 14. All right, let's march on.
I mean, I still don't think we should pay them. I know teams like LSU in the past have paid players.
And Ole Miss.
Yes, and Ole
Hugh
Miss
Freeze. Hugh
Yeah.
Freeze is a convict.
is not a convict.
Preston is
Well, he's
weeping.
not the coach of
Preston
Ole
is
Miss
currently
either.
weeping over a picture of Hugh Freeze.
He has a picture pulled up. He's showing us his tattoo again.
Okay.
Oh
okay.
boy.
Anyway,
Oh boy.
anyway,
this
moving
is
on.
disgusting.
Moving on. Okay. I just don't think. I think it changes the aspect of college football, the whole sport completely, because once you start paying the players, fans and boosters are going to start expecting different things out of them. If you pay them $100,000 a year, they're going to start expecting, oh, we pay you. You're a pro athlete now. Like, make this play. And I think it.
They expect that already. It's out of hand. It's ridiculous.
It's not professional football though. We should keep that in mind. It is college football. They get to go to the college. They get to play football.
They're
not in the
paid
pros.
with an education.
No,
and
I
by the
mean,
way,
I don't buy
put
that.
that in quotation marks for everybody listening at home.
Yeah, they can't hear air quotes, so he did put it in air quotes though.
I mean, I don't think it's worth it. I think they're already being paid under the table, and the NCAA doesn't look at it most of the time. They do a few times, but you look at Alabama, I think something's definitely going on there. Lots of FCC schools, Big Ten schools as well. They're paying players, and you see it like with what I said with like Michigan, taking their kids on trips, and the NCAA doesn't do anything about it. I think they're being paid in different ways. I don't think they're being paid in the glamorous lifestyles that NFL players are, but I think that's just part of it. And I think that it's always going to be that way, and I don't think there's a need to change.
I'm honestly perfectly fine with the under the table playing. I mean, it should still be or under the table paying. Yeah. But
Plays under table.
more importantly, what was I saying? Something about paying players. Yeah, I'm fine with them paying them under the table. But I don't think. I think paying them above board really changes the aspect and what makes college football great is that they're hungry and they want to get out of college, so they play at the highest level they can in order to get into the pros.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. In college football, you're working up to something like the NFL. That's when you get paid, even if you are getting paid under the table. I think you always have that extra level you go to.
I'm with you on that. If the NCAA were less corrupt and were to enforce it above board at all levels the same, but they don't. They pick and choose which schools they want to take down and which schools they don't, and it's out of hand. Preston, I can see you're about to say something. Don't.
Yeah, don't say anything about Ole Miss.
I
SMU.
just strongly agree.
No, SMU was destroyed. Their football program was entirely destroyed by the paying the players rules. That's a program they got. Ole Miss is fine now. They're fine.
I strongly disagree.
Their
with that.
record
They
would
are
also.
No, I mean
They
they're
are not
trash,
fine.
but they will recover. SMU has not recovered.
in the meantime.
Has not
no,
recovered.
No time soon.
But as I was saying, if they were to enforce it all around and say, yeah, as long as you make it under the table, we're fine with it, I would be cool with that. But they don't. So I think you have to keep in mind that not most of these players are not going to make it to the NFL. They will never make a cent off of football in their life. But what they will make is so many hits that are going to leave them with brain injuries for the rest of their life and no real degree, and they're not going to be able to do anything. they're not getting a real education at these places. They have nerds who do their homework for them.
You bumped it.
That's a decision a player makes. They can get a real education at the school.
That's true.
They choose not to.
You
And that's
really-
fair. I would choose not to.
You really can't, though. You cannot play college football at the level that they play and get the same education as someone who is in the honors college and works their butt off every
Well,
night. You can't.
It's not really the education that matters. It's more so the degree. So these are a lot of guys that are given opportunities through football to go to a college and get a degree. And that degree helps them later in life.
But a lot of them
that
don't
degree is
finish
worth
that
a
degree.
lot.
Most of them don't get that degree.
That's a personal decision, though. You
It's
think a
not
guy
a decision though. It's the culture does not make it so that they can advance on and get a degree and then go get a job. It makes it so that they play football. They are football players first, second, and third. After that, they have a great social life. Fifth, maybe they go to school. Occasionally, they attend classes.
Well, I mean, some of these players have the means of actually going to college. They don't have to be college football players if they don't think they're going to go to the NFL. There's no point for them to play college football if they don't think that they're going to play in the NFL and get something out of it.
A lot of them do not, though. A lot of them do not have the ability to just go to college on their own. Football is their way to get into college.
But also, a lot of those people think that they're going to make it to the league. A lot of those people who get scholarships, they wholeheartedly think that they're going to make it to the league.
Well, that's because they've been told from age 4 that they are going to make it to the league. Because they've been the best in every sport that they've played since they were 4 years old. And they've been absolutely destroying in high school. And everyone says, oh, yeah, college is going to be easy for you. You'll take 2 years and you'll make it to the league. And then they get to college and they're a mediocre player. And they say, all right, I'm going to go to the draft. And then they get absolutely destroyed.
Well, I mean, you can always just go to, like, community college after. If that doesn't happen. Or last chance you type thing. JUCO.
That is community college.
Yeah, but these are all personal decisions that players have to make. They are. It comes down to them. They can choose to work hard and they can choose to get their degree, and that will pay them in the future. It's always good to have a college degree.
Also, I want to go back to what John Paul said about the NCAA being corrupt and not investigating certain schools.
I
and
swear to
having
God,
it
if
in
you
front
say
of
Ole Miss right
I'm not going to. I'm not going to. I
Hey,
promise.
make the Rebs bowl eligible again.
They should be bowl
He's wearing the
eligible.
hat right now.
I am wearing the hat, and I gotta wear it before it goes out of style. But
Was it in style?
I don't think it's really going to go out of style.
well,
very soon.
they're gonna be bowl eligible again. That's what I mean.
Well, they have to win 6 games, so.
That's true. Okay, fair enough. If AJ Brown or DK Metcalf are listening, you should sign my hat once they become bowl eligible again. Anyway, the NCAA does what?
They won't be at that school. when
But
they're
they were
bowl
at the
eligible.
team when they weren't bowl eligible.
Or at
Anyway,
the team.
okay. Anyway,
Man,
getting
real
back to it,
embarrassing.
the NCAA does have it out for certain teams, and they want other teams to perform well. You look at Alabama; they don't want someone to take out a team that's bringing in all their money. You look at schools like Mississippi State and LSU, who were accused of paying players that the NCAA didn't investigate, or that the NCAA said the payments were okay because they were made by a friend of the family, although the payments were contingent upon them attending said university. It's just extremely unfair, and I think if the NCAA is going to ignore the paying under the table, they need to ignore it for all the teams.
Didn't Cam Newton get paid? Wasn't that a thing that happened?
A lot of money.
Yeah, and
A
he
lot of money.
signed footballs or something. Got in trouble for that. That's the most ridiculous rule that there is. That they can't sell their own likenesses. They're essentially
I agree.
wards of the college. It's ridiculous.
They're basically slaves at that point.
Slaves.
I agree. Even if you're not going to pay them, at least allow them to unionize. It's preposterous.
Absolutely.
And this heated conversation brings us to what's got us fired up today. For me, that is the Oregon recruiting class. They finished in the top 10 this week after the first day of early signing day with arguably the number 1 recruit in the country. But there's no reason why Oregon should be fielding such a great recruiting class, and I think they're paying their players. Hot take.
I agree with that. They probably are paying their players, and it's really easy to recruit when you have as much free Nike stuff
Oh
as
my
you can
God.
possibly get.
And that is what makes it paying their players. That's an
Exactly.
impermissible benefit.
Man, this guy clearly is writing his thesis on some NCAA regulations.
I am
Hey-o.
definitely writing my thesis on that.
But yeah, it's super easy. I mean, all of the college athletes get a ton of merchandise and stuff, but at Oregon, it's like a whole different level. Like, that's ridiculous.
Mike, what's got you fired up today?
What has got me fired up? I am pretty fired up about this podcast and the fact that we're going to upload our next episode and the last episode onto YouTube. So if you're not a big SoundCloud guy, tune in on YouTube. You will not regret it, for sure. Also, follow our Instagram at the Preston and Mike Show. We will definitely make it worth your while, for sure.
Yeah, for me, there's not one topic that I'm particularly over the moon fired up about today. I am kind of fired up that we don't have any sponsors yet. If somebody could get on that, I would really love to be able to sit here and talk about how great your product is, like Sprite Cranberry. That stuff is the nectar of the gods. That has me fired up. That's what's got me going today. It's incredible. But I'm also fired up that players aren't allowed to unionize. What's with that? All I want is NCAA football 18. It's a really simple request. Let them use their likeness and sell that so that I can play as them on my Xbox. Road to Glory.
Oh, Road to Glory.
Road to
I would
Glory
go
for the win.
insane.
Or
Dynasty,
franchise.
Road to Glory franchise.
Franchise.
Yes.
They're all top of that.
Every day of the week. Literally every day of the week.
All right, so it seems like we're moving on. That's the end of the second segment. That was good. I liked it, guys. I like what we're doing here. Third segment, 18 playoff. Preston, your take right now. Go.
I am anti-18 playoff gang. I think it de-incentivizes playing a great regular season schedule.
How?
You see, a loss doesn't matter as much now. I don't think if you look at big games between undefeated teams, chances are those two teams are still going to make it in the playoff. I think it also ruins conference championship games. There's no need to play a conference championship game. Got ahead of myself there. If there's an 18 playoff, because the fact of the matter is, why would Georgia want to play Alabama this year? Because their loss took them out. And the fact of the matter is, if you have a team like that with maybe 1 or 2 losses that is sitting in prime position to make a playoff bid, and then they're forced to play the other team, it just ruins everything. And I think it's a problem. And also, if the SEC is not going for it, I don't think it's going to happen. And the SEC right now is not going for it. It takes too much money away from them because they're going to have to get rid of the SEC championship game, because of the dates of all the playoff games and the fact that it won't matter anymore.
I think the popular theory of the 18 playoff is the Power 5 conference champions go. And then there's 3 floating teams they get to go to.
I strongly disagree with that because I don't think it's going to be the best 5 teams then. And I think it's really getting away from what the playoff is. Because if you look at it, is the Pac-12 champion really one of the top 8 teams? Because this year it's not.
No.
Well,
next year
is the
it
ACC,
probably won't
is
be.
Clemson one of the top 5 or one of the top 4 teams? No.
I think so. I
Not
think
for a second.
4, no, but 8, yes.
8,
yes.
absolutely.
I
Because
think
they won
could
their
show
conference.
their top 4 team potentially. We'll see how the game goes. JP.
Sorry, I was Snapchatting over here. Decided I'm gonna save a Snapchat from each one of our podcasts because I like you guys. I like the memories. Yeah, I can see both sides of an 18 playoff. Obviously Ohio State, I think, got snubbed this year. I think they would have fared well in a playoff. I think an 18 playoff would allow more teams like that. Teams like Georgia and Ohio State, who, while they are not the most deserving by their schedule and by who they played, they are one of the 8 best teams in the country. It would allow for a lot more transparency on the part of the College Football Playoff Committee, because it'd be much easier to select 8 teams to get that chance than 4. Because realistically, there are only 8 teams who are good enough or deserve it each year. 4, there are usually more like 5 or 6. But as far as putting all conference champions in there, I don't know if I would be a big fan of that, just because you have conferences like the Pac-12 and the ACC, where Washington this year, they're going to get absolutely destroyed. They're not a very good team. They're not very good at this whole football thing. It's just...
Yeah, that's just really a way to make the conference championships valuable, to make them worth playing. Because otherwise, you'd have a team like Georgia who would get in even if they lose to Alabama, sit their stars. And then no one wants to watch the SEC championship anymore.
That's fair. I see where you're getting at there. Maybe give it to the top 2 or 3 conferences. I mean, I would be happy to see the Big 12 champion, the Big 10 champion, and the SEC champion all duke it out in an 18 playoff. But I don't think the Pac-12 champion is deserving of being in there a lot of years. I don't think Washington would be one of the top 8 teams in the country this year. I think there are a lot of other teams who are better.
Also, where does it end? Because we're 4 years into the college football playoff with 4 teams, and now the Big Ten is upset because they can't get a team in 2 years in a row.
Oh, shut up.
They are. Okay, the commissioner of the Big Ten is one of the main voices calling for this 8-team playoff. And the fact of the matter is, they need to be able to get a team into a 4-team playoff. They're just upset because they can't get a team into the 8.
Well, they're upset because they have to play harder schedules than someone like Clemson and they can't get in.
Yeah,
I don't think you can argue that I think Ohio State and Michigan could both beat Clemson handily.
I strongly disagree.
How?
I think it'd be a good game. I think it'd be a 50-50 toss-up, but I think Clemson is a better team than you give them credit for.
Well, Clemson's only
Ohio
undefeated. They're only undefeated because they're in the ACC.
Potentially
What do you think?
better than
What do you
Ohio.
think they would do if they were in the Big Ten? What do you think their record would be?
It depends what side of the Big Ten. I think if they were in the Big Ten West, undefeated still. I think if they're in the Big Ten East, maybe 1 loss, maybe 2. It depends.
2 losses, for sure. I think the Big Ten is rightfully upset because the Oklahoma, great team, incredible offense, but they can't fare against that big, rough style of football that you have Alabama and Georgia and other teams like that playing. It's not going to work. They don't have the defense to do it. And the Big Ten has 2 teams this year that are capable of giving Alabama and Clemson and Notre Dame a run for their money, but they're not allowed in because of this ridiculous SEC bias. There will never be a year where the team that wins the SEC is not put in. And there was talk of having 2 SEC teams in this year, and Ohio State is more deserving and a better team than Georgia. So the fact that Georgia is ranked above Ohio State is ridiculous. They are being rewarded for a loss to Alabama. Yeah, that's insane. That's absolutely insane.
Well, it kind of sucks for Ohio State, but also they were kind of inconsistent in that little 2-week run. They lost Purdue, and then they almost lost to Maryland in OT. So, I mean, I kind of see where the commission's coming from there, and it kind of puts more pressure on the entire rest of the season because you had to play your best game. Ohio State has to play their Michigan game every week if they want to make the playoffs and compete with some of these SEC teams.
Yeah, but just from the perspective of someone who loves to watch good football, wouldn't you love to watch Ohio State play Georgia?
I would.
Wouldn't
That'd
you?
be a great
Wouldn't everyone? And if you had an 8-game or 8-team playoff, the games would be insane. They would be so good. It would be the 8 best teams in the country rather than the 4 best, and there could be no argument if you had an 8-team playoff.
Now, hear me out here. This is what Paul Feinbaum says, and I kind of agree with it. If we're going to move it, why don't we move it to a 6-team playoff? I think once you get to the 7th team, it's a little more iffy. There's a few teams you could have gone with. I think the top 6 teams all had a decent argument for the playoff, and I think if we did a 6-team playoff, give the first 2 seeds a bye, and then have 3 play 6 and 4 play 5, and then have those teams play 1 and 2. I think there's a better chance there.
I would take it. I'd be happy with it. I would take anything that the NCAA will give me at this point, but I would prefer 8 teams. I don't like the idea of 2 teams having a bye. I would rather see Alabama crush whatever team is at 8, destroy Washington, and then go on to play the next week. The only reason you wouldn't let 7 and 8 in is if you're scared. Is Alabama scared? Is that what they're saying? They're saying, oh, we want to buy the first round. We want to be exactly the same as the 4-team playoff for us. We want everyone else to have to struggle, because that's what it sounds like. That's what I'm hearing from you, Preston.
I don't think Alabama's scared at all. I think you can see that in every game they play because they win in a dominating fashion.
Citadel.
And what was the final score to the Citadel game?
Citadel was tied with Alabama at half. That's
what was the final score? It was like 50-something to 17.
You don't even know the final score.
It was 50-something. They were in the 50s again.
They were tied at halftime.
Hey, the final score is what matters. The halftime score does not change the outcome.
It does when you're playing the Citadel.
Okay. And by the way, do you think Nick Saban isn't playing 4D chess with that game right now? Do you think that didn't inspire him to make his team better? Just saying.
No. Why would you intentionally
Because
play
Nick Saban is
poorly
the
against
great
someone?
coach of all time, and he
That's
hasn't
not
had a
good
game.
coaching.
No,
That's
hold up,
losing
hold up.
a game. almost.
Anyone who ever uses the term 4D chess unironically is wrong. Whatever they're saying is wrong.
All I'm saying is that Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time. There's no debate.
Well, I'm not arguing with
And
that.
that
I'm
th-
saying
he
he
needs-
didn't
his team is
let
so
them score
good this
17
year.
on him.
His team is so good this year that he needed some adversity, something to really push his team farther, because it's hard to keep building upon yourself when you're winning every game by 40
You don't
points.
think they had
No.
adversity against Georgia?
They
That
didn't
was
have
enough
Georgia yet.
adversity.
They didn't have Georgia yet.
No, this.
How do you think they were going to get ready
this
for
is
the
the
Georgia?
most
losing
ridiculous
credentials.
conspiracy. Take
Second
your
of all,
tinfoil hat off, Preston.
The
4D chess,
8-team
Nick Saban,
playoff
not for a
still
second.
strongly disagree. I don't think Alabama's scared. I think it's just a question of getting the right 4 teams in, and the
Well
committee.
said.
Embarrassed.
The committee can't even do that right now by getting the top 4 teams in. So what's to say they're going to get the top 8 teams in?
It would be significantly
It's a lot
easier to get
easier.
the 8 best teams in an 8-team playoff.
But then also, it's not going to stop. I feel like once you move to
It
18,
definitely, it
What happened
logistically
with-
has to stop.
what happened with college basketball? It just kept expanding.
That's because a basketball game takes what, 40 minutes? 40 minutes, guys? A football
Yeah.
game takes significantly longer, and there's significantly more preparation, and it's a lot easier to get injured. You need more recovery time.
I just
so
think-
logistically, they can't just cut out the whole season and start the year with a football tournament. That
That would
doesn't
be
make
interesting.
sense.
That
Are
would
we
be interesting.
arguing against a 64-team playoff? Because that would be sick.
That would be
I would-
insane. But
if-
how would you seed?
It would be a logistical nightmare. But if we were to have March Madness in December with football, that there would be nothing better than that. You would literally never not be watching college football. You would have to call off school for an entire month at any school that boys attend because no one will show up.
Yeah, no, that would be insane, but every player would die.
I mean,
Every
yeah.
single college football player would die playing a game every 2 days in a 64-team playoff.
But why are we using that as like the great extrapolation of this logic and it being so horrible? That would be awesome.
And I'm not saying I'm extrapolating to 64 teams. I'm just saying
You literally just did that.
I
Yeah,
know.
that is
Oh, you're right.
exactly
I'm just saying-
what you
No, you're right. 68. You get the first 4. It's all.
Okay. I'm just saying they're gonna keep building, and it's gonna be number 8 versus number 9. Oh, number 9 was snubbed. You know, it's that kind of conversation, and I think it's a risky road to go down right now. I think we still need to play out the 4-team playoff for the next few years that we have them under contract.
Well, I don't think the 16-team playoff is a good one because
16?
six-
16 is too many.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
isn't that what Preston said? The 16 teams? Isn't that what you said? Oh, okay. Just kidding.
Yeah, no,
I
I think
retract my
6 is
statement.
just kind of dumb. Just make it.
Why 6?
Make it 4.
I don't know. I think 6 would be almost the exact same as 4.
6 would just give 1 and 2 a bye, and you would have 3 play 5 and 4 play
No,
6.
Yeah, I think 8 would be
8 would
pretty
be
key.
ideal. 8
because
would be
after
sick.
8, who really cares? I mean, honestly.
After 8, nobody else would get in.
The problem for me is that usually the 5 and 6 teams can have some argument to make the top 4. 6 maybe not as much, but 5 definitely. So you look at Ohio State last year.
Ohio State this year.
Ohio State this year is at 6. Georgia this year at 5. They both have legitimate arguments to make the playoff. I think once you get to 7 and 8, I don't think those teams are as good. And I think it's proven.
The thing is, though, 7 is Michigan this year. Wouldn't you love Michigan, Clemson, Alabama? Okay, UCF shouldn't be 8. I don't know how you.
No. But if with an 8-team playoff, you enable a team like UCF.
They would get robbed.
No,
Okay, yeah,
Hey,
Alabama,
Rob.
UCF.
No, that's the thing.
Are you kidding
But
me?
with an
That's not
with an
fair. They would
with
die.
a 4-team playoff, you can never have anyone outside of the Power 5 conferences get in. But with an 8-team playoff, you could have a team like UCF who wins all of their games, and then we wouldn't have to hear this
National
BS
champions.
UCF national champions anymore. That will finally be put to bed because that one team can make it in. The best team that is not in the Power 5 conference can be the 8 every single year.
I think that's gonna get put to rest this year when LSU beats UCF.
I agree, but
I
wouldn't you
would
love?
agree.
Wouldn't you? Okay, Alabama, UCF wouldn't be a game.
Real
But
quickly though, speaking of outside the Power 5, I just need to touch on this. The Mountain West Conference, Boise State. I know you guys are big Boise State
Sorry,
supporters.
You just said outside the Power 5. The Mountain West.
The Mountain West
in
is
the Power 5.
this year. It's better than the ACC and
And
the
the
Pac-12.
Most of the Pac-12.
Okay. Anyway, Boise State. I think it's Boise State. They're putting together one of the best outside the Power 5 recruiting classes in the history of recruiting classes. Usually, outside the Power 5 schools, the typical Power 5 schools, now what we're considering on this podcast, it's hard to get a blue chip recruit, which is a 4 or 5-star recruit. And this year, Boise State has 3 of those, I believe, which is unheard of, considering I think there's only one other one that's going to a school outside the Power 5. So they're tripling every other non-Power 5 school in blue chip recruits right now.
Yeah, they're just going to get better and better. Blue chips on the blue field there.
You know who's also going to be great next year? BYU. They manage to be great every single year. It's ridiculous. And I will talk about this in probably every episode.
Okay.
Astonished.
Back to it. In an 8-team playoff, Alabama UCF is 1 versus 8, and that's a blowout for Alabama. But wouldn't you love to watch Clemson versus Michigan, Notre Dame versus Ohio State, and Oklahoma versus Georgia?
I would like to see Miami get a bowl game. next year.
Everyone would like to see Miami get a bowl game.
Agreed.
They got snubbed this year. Speaking of snubbed, them and Ohio State, my two teams, they got snubbed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely love to watch this. It would be incredible. I'm watching something here on this computer is saying it's with different rankings, albeit, but you've got Ohio State playing Texas. That would be a game I would love to watch. Clemson playing Michigan. That would be an incredible game. Alabama playing Georgia. That would be it. It always is incredible. And then Notre Dame LSU. All of those games would get ridiculous ratings. They would get the ratings of the college football playoff championship game every single year.
I'm not arguing with you that they get good ratings, and I think that's why they have New Year's Six bowls with these teams. But I'm just gonna explain. I'm playing devil's advocate here for 1 second. If you look at Michigan, Michigan's lost to number 6 Ohio State and number 3 Notre Dame. So why should they be in the playoff? Is my point. I think they've proven they can't beat.
They're a good team.
I'm not saying they're not a good team. I'm saying I don't think they deserve to be in the upper echelon of those playoff teams, considering the fact that they already lost to 2 of them. I think 6 teams would be better. I don't think it's worth having them in.
Well, I mean, Clemson had like an 80% chance to win every single one of their games this year. So what makes them worthy of being in a playoff, in a 4-team playoff? Absolutely nothing.
I think they dominated their games, which is
Well, they
different than
dominated
other
trash teams.
Anyone
They
could
haven't
dominate
played
against
anyone.
that schedule.
They played decent teams.
They played A&M's the only decent team they played. What was the score of that game? JP, you got it?
28-26, right?
It was 31-30.
Close.
They won by 1
I thought it was
point
2.
against the only mediocre team. They
It was
played.
at A&M, though. Give them that.
No, not for a second. Not for a second. Will I give them any leeway? You can't be the number 2 team in the country and lose to and beat A&M by a single point.
Okay, we're
Home or away?
gonna do final takes here. So we're gonna wrap it up with our thoughts of the day. We're gonna start with our guest of the day, Andrew Mahasik.
I still think my thought of the day is Miami should have been in a bowl, and the MAC conference will dominate one day. They will become the new SEC. Mark my words, whatever today's date is, 10/20/2018.
Thanks for coming on the show today, Andrew. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having you on sometime in the future. My thought of the day is really that Alabama's recruiting class, and I know you guys don't like talking about recruiting classes, but it's my thought of the day, so I get 10 seconds of fame, 15 seconds, whatever, is that Alabama's recruiting class, and JP's counting me right now, is unparalleled, and it's battling Florida for the top recruiting class in history.
And that's 10 seconds.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Preston, for that incredibly interesting take. My thought of the day kind of coincides with what I was fired up about earlier. My thought of the day is how great our fans are and how they should keep listening, and I'll think they're even better. So shout out to Andrew for coming on today. We might have another guest star on in the future. Now over to JP. JP's final take.
My thought of the day is also, it's a little bit what I'm fired up about, or more so excited. I am incredibly excited for the fight song of the day, guys. That's definitely my favorite part of this show from now on.
Yeah, guess the fight song that we played at the beginning of the episode down in the comments for a special thumbs up or high five for me.
Just really any affirmation.
And remember, if you listen and comment, you will have the opportunity to be the special guest speaker like Andrew was today. So get out there, listen, and comment. And thanks for joining us this week.
And if you've listened to this point, Michael is willing to talk about anything, anytime.
Anything, always willing to talk. Thank you all for listening. Adios.